Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, I'll tell you what, you want to buy a home, you want to buy a car, you're going to have good credit, and is it available at all? This is a program you're not going to want to miss. And then we have healthcare update, very important healthcare changes with President Obama and Governor Rendell. We're going to talk about that as well, and we'll be back in a moment.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, the financial community in this country is, well, in what kind of a state it's gotten now. It will get its second help from the national government, trying to loosen credit, trying to stabilize the investment banking community, which has a big effect on the commercial banking community. We have some folks here from the Credit Union Association, as always, Pennsylvania Credit Union Association, to sort of talk about credit, talk about what you need to do to make sure you can get credit. We're not going to get out of this recession unless we start to do what, Mike Wishnow?
Borrow, spend.
That's exactly right. Well, joining me as often is the case is Mike Wishnow. He's a senior VP from the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association, and Steve Brindamour. Not related. Okay, come on, say it.
No, not related to Rod.
Not related to the... Well, we'll talk about that later. He's the CEO of the Susquehanna Valley Federal Credit Union. All right, Steve, I want to start with you. Look, everybody understands that until we start spending, we're in deflation. We can't get out of deflation and we can't get out of recession until consumers start to borrow. But consumers have to be able to get the credit to borrow, and there's two pieces to that. You all have to have the money to give them, right?
We have the money to give them, right?
Oh, we like to hear that. And secondly, they have to have good credit. Am I right?
That's
Talk
correct.
about that in context for a moment.
Well, we do our lending on risk-based lending, so it's important that you have a good credit score. And the better the credit score you have, the lower the interest rate you can borrow, and of course that's a lower payment for you. So you can actually borrow more money with a higher score.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of factors that go into that credit score, and people just don't realize the importance. Your credit score is important in getting a job, getting credit, your car insurance. It comes into play in a lot of different things.
Yeah, Michael, look, over the years we've talked a little bit about it, but I'll tell you what, it's never had more urgency. I mean, every time when I watch a program or on the Internet, something will come up, well, get all three, you know, from the three major credit. It's the average of the three. This gets pretty complicated for a lot of folks who might say, well, I'll just get one credit report. But that's really not what lenders want. They want all three. They want to see the averages. And then in a moment, I want to talk about what consumers need to do to make sure, right, make sure that these reports are accurate, because, as Steve points out, they're very, very important. Talk about why these credit reports additionally are important.
Well, the credit report really is designed to be a predictor of a borrower's ability to repay.
Yeah.
So typically the scores range from about 300 to 800. Anything 700 plus says you're a very, very good risk. Chances are you've paid all your bills historically, you don't have too much debt on your existing accounts, and you're highly likely to repay.
So these are the key elements in terms of the score. The higher the score, determined by
The amount of credit you borrow.
how much you borrow.
How much you have outstanding.
Okay.
How you're paying on a regular basis.
Michael's point: you got to pay regularly. You can't default. I mean, all of that, defaults.
Late payments. Another area that people don't realize, those people that pay off their credit card each month are not really building any credit, because there's never a balance reported to the credit bureau. So there's a lot of factors that come in. Your outstanding balance versus the line that you've been approved for, the amount of outstanding that you have in consideration to what your income is, and of course the biggest thing is your repayment history.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's summarize this. I want to go into to talk a little bit about what is a credit score and get into some of the details in a moment. So the point is that in order to get a loan, right, particularly in this environment where lenders are going to be very careful about who they lend, this credit report is actually determinative right now. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Again, Steve's out there actively lending. It's the #1 criteria, isn't it, Steve?
It is, definitely. And of course, your income, but the most important thing is your credit history.
I noticed they want all, and again, we'll go, I don't want to beat this horse dead, but it's all three that matter. So if you're a consumer out there and you want to make sure you have good credit, you need to get all three of those. To talk about the relationship between the three.
Well, the different creditors that you have report to all the credit bureaus, but for example, we report primarily to the TransUnion Credit Bureau.
Okay.
And subsequently, we also report to the other two. But some of the information that we're reporting may not show up on the other two. So if all of a sudden now you're going to get credit somewhere else, and they're pulling, say, from Experian,
right,
they may not have the information that we send them on a regular basis. So it's important. Each credit bureau could have different information on it.
Yeah, and now it's my understanding, having just been through this recently, that they use the average of the three. They throw out the top and they throw out the low lenders. Is that typical or not? Or is it a possibility?
It really depends on the
Okay.
credit score and the type of loan that you're going for. In your case, Terry, I suspect you were probably going for a mortgage loan or a home equity loan.
Yeah.
Or, the more the principal amount, the more exposure to the lender, right, Steve?
Yeah.
The more careful they're likely to be
Okay.
in the underwriting process.
All right, we're going to get into the details of it. This is a program you hang in here with us. This is important because we're not getting out of this recession until we get liquidity, folks begin to borrow again, until we begin to spend. I know we need a job for that, but we'll see how that works out as well. Back in a moment. All right.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PAConstructionJobs.com. For more information about rewarding careers in the highway construction industry, visit PAConstructionJobs.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking about how important a credit report is to your ability to borrow money, loan for a car. Maybe not so important for a car, but a home. Talk about that.
It can be, because your credit score is going to determine what rate, and it applies to your home, it applies to car loans, unsecured credit. So the higher your credit score, the less it's going to cost you to borrow.
All right, let's go to, you get a credit report and it's not very good, Michael. What should, tell our viewers, what should they begin to do in order to get that report up so they can borrow money at less interest?
Well, the first thing you have to do is get the credit report.
All
You're
right.
right. You get that at annualcreditreport.com. You can get it once a year for free under the law.
Annualcreditreport.com.
Once a year.
Okay.
You get it free. Take a look at your credit report. Make sure everything on that credit report is accurate. That's the first thing. A lot of times there are old things that shouldn't be on there,
Yep.
or if you have a common name or what have you. Steve, I don't know, do you look at your members? I mean, how often do you find that members have erroneous information on their credit?
There are situations that there is incorrect information, and we let our members know that you need to contact the credit bureau. You can either do it via a letter, or you can get online and give them a discrepancy. And they're required to research the discrepancy and then report back to you whether it's been corrected or not. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but again, if there's anything erroneous, then they need to contact the credit bureau and they'll get that corrected for you.
Okay, so get the report, make sure it's all accurate.
Right.
All right, now, to get the score up.
To get the score up, if there are payment issues, late payments, those kinds of things, make sure you work with your creditors. Contact the credit union where you borrowed, the bank where you borrowed.
Right.
If you have your loan with GMAC, make sure that you have a repayment plan that you can follow so that going forward, the information they report is positive, right?
A lot of times you'll have like medical bills or something that were not paid with a claim and you're unaware that they're even on your credit report. So what you want to make sure is that you contact them, get those satisfied, get any outstanding debt that you were unaware of and get those satisfied.
Now, how often would you recommend that people get a copy of these reports?
Well, part of it depends on what their credit score is. I mean, if you have real good credit, then, you know, once a year just to make sure you still have real good credit's fine. If you're marginal, meaning you're 650 to 700, where it's really going to start to impact your pricing more frequently, even if it costs you $10 to get a copy just to make sure it's accurate. Wouldn't you agree, Steve?
Yeah, and the other thing is if you're not applying for credit, like if you're not going to need credit for a couple years down the road, you don't have to get one each and every year because you haven't applied for any additional credit. But it's good, you know, if every couple of years, depending on how often you're applying for credit.
Now, I noticed that there's a dispute process that you can go through if you get into an argument or a dispute. It's called the Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act.
Correct. Correct. Under the federal law, the credit reporting agency must report accurate information.
Okay.
If there's something on there that you feel is inaccurate, you have the right to dispute it with the credit reporting agency. They have 60 days to determine that it's accurate, or they must remove it.
Now, we're almost out of time. This is a great update. I think this is among the programming that we've done in the last couple of months. We've spent a lot of time on, you know, state government and the deficit and the federal government. This is one of the more important topics because, quite frankly, if you can't get this straightened out, I mean, a lot of people are in trouble here. I mean, they're going to pay a lot more for loans. That's the point I keep emphasizing. And some of it could be needless. I mean, it just could be mistakes. And there's also ways to help you get out of this situation. I noticed that there are companies that can help you fix the credit, but you got to be careful about them.
That's right, because some of them are charging higher fees. And I mean, if you've got bad credit, evidently you either owe something or you've had bad credit history. So you want to be able to repay that debt. And if you're paying somebody else a portion of your money and you don't have enough, you're not really benefiting yourself. All
right, great update. All right, we'll have you back. We're going to watch this as we want to talk more about liquidity and how people are getting loans. And I know, Michael, you're coming back with the state treasurer in a couple of weeks to chat about a program you have with the state government. All right, health care, I'll tell you what, if we were not in this recession, health care would dominate the debate, the national debate. We got our expert, Dr. Stuart Shapiro. He's coming on to chat about what President Obama's doing, find out a little bit about Governor Rendell. He's had some plans in the legislature. We'll talk about that following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Dr. Stuart Shapiro joins us. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association. He's one of the experts that comes on from time to time to chat with us about the important changes that are going on in healthcare. And I'll tell you what, Doctor, I don't think there's any doubt if we did not have this recession, we would be having a major national debate about all of these big healthcare problems that you and I have talked about. We're not even discussing right now, but we'll have you back. Medicare, oh my gosh. We talk about Medicaid a lot. All of the costs and the folks that are going to be eligible for that. Now, at this moment, we're dealing with covering a limited number of people in Governor Rendell's plan to deal something with, what, the 800,000 Pennsylvanians that don't have health care coverage. So talk about what Governor Rendell is trying to do. He made this proposal in the budget a couple of weeks ago.
Well, the governor, as I best understand it, wants to expand his adult basic program.
Right.
Match the dollars that the state would spend with federal dollars. But I think the issue is much broader than that. We're obviously in either a recession or moving towards perhaps depression. And the federal stimulus package is going to provide to the state's Medicaid program the ability of the governor to hold the pieces together for the next year or two. It doesn't address what's going to happen when that package expires at the end of 2010, and it especially doesn't address what the governor is going to do or what the nation's going to do about long-term care for the elderly, because that's the hole that no one's even willing to look into to see what the problems are.
And it's massive. I mean, if I got these numbers right, you can correct me, some 75 million of us in 2007 began to move to and then beyond the big age 65. Now, I know you got to be a little older now to get Social Security and Medicare, but 75 million of us?
Correct. And it's the problem is obviously increasing as each year. Right now, Pennsylvania has about 17% of its population is over 65.
Right.
In a decade from now, it's going to be 25%. And how the individuals who are over 65 are going to be able to afford their own long-term care is a real problem.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit. I mean, there are competing. I mean, I think most experts think that even though the states are grappling with this problem, it really is a problem that sort of begs a national solution. I mean, states, look at the deficits that these states have now. Our deficit, Governor Rendell says $2.3 billion. Imagine California, $40 billion, where they're proposing massive cuts in health care. This is really a federal problem, is it, or is it not?
The issues of health care, both in the short term for the people under 65 and over 65, is a federal and a significant federal issue. But I must tell you, the governor's budget was quite thoughtful this year. It's quite fragile, but he set a priority going in of making sure that the safety net for the elderly and for kids were protected. And let's just hope that that holds. Still not adequate, because nursing homes and hospitals are chronically underfunded. And over the last several years, the nursing homes in Pennsylvania have been underfunded for over $600 million. But the governor deserves a lot of credit, because his efforts on behalf of the stimulus package were tireless. And Pennsylvania has benefited from that, or will benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I think of all, there's this big debate about the stimulus package. Some people favor it, some people don't. It's been very divisive. But most of the time, the criticisms have come to sort of these pork projects that have nothing to do with infrastructure or health care. I mean, it's sort of fascinating that even the critics of the program admit that there's got to be something done about dealing with the concerns for the elderly, as well as the concerns with people who don't have health care and children. We have a pretty good SCHIP program, the state version of the national program to aid kids, but we have thousands of kids that haven't even signed up. Their parents haven't even signed them up for a program for which they're eligible.
And that's the problem with the kids, is that the parents aren't taking the kids to sign up. There's an outreach effort. When people go to a provider, the providers help them sign up. But it's a very important program. But the gaps in Medicaid, if we didn't have a federal stimulus program, would have just been overwhelming. And while you or others may say that the stimulus package had a little bit of pork in, and perhaps it did, if we didn't have this stimulus package, Pennsylvania wouldn't be getting $16 billion over the next several years.
All right, we'll be back. We're talking with Dr. Stuart Shapiro. We're getting into these health care subjects that are very important at this moment. Back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School. bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program for our final segment. Dr. Shapiro, I want to ask you about something that, doctors, nurses, everybody gets a little afraid to admit a mistake. And, for fear of the liability consequences. But there was some legislation introduced that I know you're very much involved with that goes by the name of apology legislation. I don't know if that's accurate or not. What's that all about, and why is that important?
Well, Pennsylvania is one of the only a handful of states that does not have legislation that allows a doctor, a nurse, a hospital administrator, a nurse practitioner, a nursing home, if something doesn't happen that was planned, to simply say, I feel badly that this occurred.
Yeah.
Doesn't admit fault.
Right.
All they want to do is to say, you had a little infection, and I feel badly that an infection happened. We're not talking about negligence. We're talking about something just doesn't work out exactly as planned. And in most states, the doctor or the hospital can say, I'm sorry, and that statement can't be used against them in court. Today, if there's an untoward event, a doctor hides. The doctor, because he's afraid or she's afraid of being sued.
Yeah.
University of Michigan, University of Illinois put in programs like this and reduced the malpractice cases by 50%.
So let me frame this another way. You did a great job. Let me ask, in other words, a doctor should be able to sit down with a patient and say, here's what I did and here's what went wrong. Maybe it wasn't the doctor's fault. Maybe it was. It's not the point. But the doctor can't even sit down and said, this is what happened.
In fact, the doctors are told by their malpractice carriers not to have that discussion. And people don't sue most of the time because of greed.
That's crazy not to.
They sue because they're mad that no one's communicated to them.
But why? I mean, this seems like a no-brainer
Once the University of Illinois told the doctors to say, sorry that this happened, the number of suits went down by 2/3. Same at the University of Michigan. This doesn't take away any lawyer's right to sue, doesn't take away any ability, but it simply is common sense legislation.
We're almost out of time. Does this have a chance of passage? Maybe we'll get Senator Pat Vance, who's the
She's the sponsor of this legislation, very forward-reaching, and we are very hopeful because it has 31 sponsors that it will pass.
We'll get you on. We'll get Senator Vance on. We'll talk about this. A good idea?
Great idea.
All right. See you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.